Ready to make a real impact every day? Join the Active Day Home Care team and help clients maintain their independence in the comfort of their own homes. Make a difference in someone's life as you provide essential daily assistance and protect their health and happiness. Earn up to $20 an hour and enjoy additional perks like optional daily pay, 401k, paid time off, ongoing educational training, and more. Join a team that values care, compassion, and your professional growth. Visit activeday.com to apply.
Lowe's knows how to help you save. This July 4th, get up to 40% off select Whirlpool kitchen appliances. Plus, get an additional 10% off when you buy 2 or 3 select major appliances. And when you buy 4 or more, you'll save an additional 20%. Find the right appliances and features that fit your kitchen's unique needs and style. Shop Whirlpool 4th of July deals at Lowe's. Valid through 7/9. See Lowe's.com for details. Savings vary based on purchase amount. Selection varies by location.
Ready to make a real impact every day? Join the Active Day Home Care team and help clients maintain their independence in the comfort of their own homes. Make a difference in someone's life as you provide essential daily assistance and protect their health and happiness. Earn up to $20 an hour and enjoy additional perks like optional daily pay, 401k, paid time off, ongoing educational training, and more. Join a team that values care, compassion, and your professional growth. Visit activeday.com to apply.
Stop right there. Yeah, you. If you like all things entertainment, current events, or Hollywood, then look no further. Creator to Creators, hosted by director Meosha of Horror Noir, interviews filmmakers and creatives from around the world. Join in on the fun, guest celebrities, and informative information to have as a creator. Hit subscribe and stay connected to Creator to Creators.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Creator to Creators today. Today we have a special guest.
My name's Royce.
Yeah, man, it's great to have you back on. I mean, the last time you were here was a couple years ago. Lots have happened. I mean, you're killing it out here and working and doing all the great things like as a creator does. But let's start from the beginning for those that don't know you. Like, what was your childhood like, and how did you kind of get into the creative world?
My childhood life, I would say, was very just watching TV, playing video games, and watching movies, obviously. And once I got to a certain age, my mom said I needed to go outside and be active. So I took up basketball. Thought I was going to be in the NBA for a second. That didn't work out. So I went back to watching TV, watching movies, and playing video games. And yeah, I mean, for me, it was just like, I just spent a lot of time soaking up things that kind of like made me feel certain things. The first time I knew I wanted to like be a storyteller in some form and being like in the creative field was, walking out of the movie theater, seeing Toy Story for the first time. I was like, maybe 5, 6, or 7 or something like that. But I was just like, yo, like, I feel some type of way. why do I feel that way? Like, but I knew that movie made me feel that way. So I'm like, I think I want to try and do that because that's a really cool feeling to be able to do that. So I kind of just started experimenting in different avenues, trying to figure out like what my lane was. I liked reading comics, and I liked cartoons and things like that. And obviously like watching Toy Story, I was like, first avenue was like, okay, well maybe I'll draw, I'll do animation, I'll do comics. So I tried to learn how to draw. That was extremely hard. I was not very good. So I'm like, okay, maybe this isn't it. I was like, well, Toy Story is 3D animated. Maybe I can learn how to do that. And especially like back then, 3D animation was good. So I opened up 3D application, Maya, which is still the standard to this day. I opened that up and immediately closed it. I was like, nope, not for me. I was like, I made a sphere and that was it. Because that's like a template. So I didn't even have to do anything to make that. But then like my biggest love was always watching movies. So then I always had that in the back of my head, but I was like, oh no, movies, for whatever reason, movies just seem like, no, that's too big. That's too epic of a thing. Because, I used to always watch behind the scenes, bonus features and stuff. Like when DVDs became big, I would buy movies just to watch the bonus features and everything and see how movies were made. And like watching it, I would just always be like, yo, how many people are in there like making this? Like hundreds of people?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, no, there's no way. There's no way. I ain't got time for that. And so, yeah, so I was exploring a lot of things, fell into music for a little bit, tried producing, did a little rapping. Don't need to go too far into that.
Can we Google this? Can we find this on YouTube?
No. Well, maybe I did have a SoundCloud, so I had some of my beats on there, but nothing where you hear my voice.
Oh, darn. Okay. I was like, come on, come on. We go way back. Come on, Fred. I'd love to hear you rap.
I know. Maybe I'll send you the SoundCloud link. Maybe. Hey. I'll think about it. But yeah, then that didn't work out either. So then I slowly kind of like started teetering back to the film side. My parents were just like, you love film. Like, why are you avoiding this? And, my parents pretty much told me like, the fact that you're so afraid to do it means that's probably what you should be doing.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's deep. Okay. So, I went back to school. Actually, I dropped out of college to pursue my rap career, and then ended up going back to school for film and got my degree. And from there, just kind of hit the ground running, shooting a couple short films, things like that, and just really fell in love with it, fell in love with the process, and just kind of being like, okay, this is definitely, what I'm supposed to be doing. And just kind of like kept going through that path. And I'm a big sci-fi guy. So a lot of my stories are science fiction. Well, not a lot. All of my stories are science fiction. And I quickly realized that like doing sci-fi, especially indie on a budget sci-fi, is really hard. You got to get really creative.
And you are.
A lot of. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. And like a lot of ideas, you either have to sacrifice on the story end so you can tell it visually, or you try not to sacrifice and then you just have to get really, really creative on the visual end of like, okay, how do I portray this? I know I don't have the budget to do all these things, but how can I still accomplish the same thing? And so that kind of took over, I would say, doing that lane, but also doing that kind of like got really exhausting, got really draining. And I just kind of like, I don't know, I kind of hit a creative wall where I was just like, man, I don't know. Like I always had ideas always kept flowing, but then I just started thinking about all the things and the stuff it would take to kind of like make my ideas like come to life. And I was just like, man, I wonder if this is the field, the genre I'm going to play in, I wonder if there's another way to do it. Because what I'm doing right now ain't it. It's hurting the bank account. Yeah. It's hurting the personal life, the family life, the friend life. Because you obviously know, especially playing the indie route, like so a lot of times you got to lean on friends. And when you do that, sometimes, friendships can fall out and it just, it gets very complicated. So, I just kind of like hit that wall where just like, man, there's got to be another way to do it. And so I kind of like went back in time and was like, okay, what are some other ways I can still get these stories out? Since making my films, like I had to like learn how to write and be a screenwriter and things like that. And that was another thing too. I hated writing, but through screenwriting,
I love it now.
Yeah, exactly. Same with me. Like I kind of like fell in love with writing and kind of like how you can do it. And I kind of like took that. I'm like, okay, what else can I try and write? Maybe I was like, oh, maybe I'll write a book. I tried to do that, got to like the second chapter and I was like, writing a book is crazy. I don't know if this is what I want to do. And then I started going back to like my original kind of like inspirations of, going back to looking at 3D animation, reading comic books and things like that. And eventually kind of had that idea of like, you know what, maybe I should give comic books a try. And I was trying to do another kind of go around at one of my projects. I hit up a friend. I was like, hey, can you help me storyboard this? Yeah. But like the style and tone, like I really wanted to have kind of like a comic book feel. That's kind of how I want to tell the story. And when he hit me with the storyboards, I was like, wow, you understood the assignment. You literally made a comic book. I was like, you know what? Maybe that should be the route. So we were like, all right, let's play around and actually turn this into a comic book. And that ended up being my my idea of BioPunks, which the first volume just came out. So, you know,
congratulations.
So, you know, spoiler alert, with that, I kind of like fell in love with writing comics and kind of like how that storytelling played out, because it kind of mixed for me the best elements of screenwriting and kind of novel writing, you know, because with scripts, what I realized was that, you know, as much as I enjoyed writing, you're confined to what you can say because, you know, it's a show don't tell medium. And so writing comics kind of forced me to dive more into things like what a character's thinking, a character's feeling, things I would write down but knew I couldn't put into scripts.
Yeah.
But we always say it would be easier if I could just write this in.
Yeah.
You know, or like, you know, things you would discuss with the actors later on, like, okay, this is your character's motivation. So, you know, you actually can dive into that just like you would a novel where you have to dive into like the inner workings of the world and characters and descriptions and things like that. So I really kind of just dove in and just allowed me to be free, where it's like, okay, what I could think of the craziest idea in my head and I can make it a comic. I don't have to like sacrifice anything, pull back anything, and worry about budget. Well, had to worry about budget in the sense of like artists and who I could pay for, things like that. But it was still way more of a, you know, plausible avenue to take versus filmmaking. And going into that, because for me, it was also like, okay, if I do this, am I giving up on filmmaking?
No.
And yeah, and that's kind of like what I had to come to the realization where it's like, oh, okay, this is just kind of like a new way to do things. But the way I'm telling the stories is still, at least in my head, still kind of like film, TV drama related, kind of just putting onto panels on a page. And, you know, also being very aware of where the space is right now in the entertainment industry, especially with film and TV. You know, these studios, they need ideas. Like they're running out of ideas, which is why we get a bunch of reboots just nonstop. So for me, it's like, it's kind of like a way to build up these stories in a way I actually couldn't have done if they were just scripts, because now I'm not just writing a script, I'm building an IP, I'm building a fan base behind that, I'm getting the community involved, and actually, and it's a great test to be like, is this idea actually even any good? You know, because I think that could also happen too. You write a script, the script is dope, and then when you go to film, you're like, wait, why isn't this working?
Gotcha.
You know, because sometimes it's hard for things to translate, and you kind of have to start maneuvering some things. But this is a great way to be like, yo, okay, this idea actually is great. Because for BioPunks, that was a feature film script first before I started as a comic, and the reception I got when it was a script versus a comic book, completely different.
Really?
Absolutely different. Yes. Comic book or as a script, it was always, because when people read it, they always just think of like, cool, how are you going to do this though? You know, like how are you going to make this work? And where with comic books, that restriction's off because what you see is what you get. Like I did it on the page. So people get to fully experience the story. Everything that I'm explaining is right there for them to see. So they could just take it in for what it's worth. And people have been loving it so far, which is just amazing. Like I couldn't have asked for anything else. And so much so that with my next project, Legend of Althea, which is my second comic book, which will still probably be blurred out, but
it looks really good. It looks really good. I love the characters. I love that they're like, is that on purpose? Is that the character? Are you the diversity that you're tapping into? Because it's something that I haven't really seen much of like in the comic world, and I appreciate that. So,
thank you. No, absolutely. That's very, very intentional because even before they were comics, the way I moved was always with, you know, inclusion front of mind. Creating projects that I would have liked to have seen as a kid. That's like everything. That's my motivation behind everything. Is like, what would I think would be dope if I was like 8 or 10 and I walked to a movie theater or I walked into a comic book shop and was like, yo, give me that. You know, so that's definitely front of mind. And just, making sure that there is that inclusion in a field which is doing a lot better now, in the entertainment industry. Like the voices have been heard. I feel like, at least are starting to begin to be heard, in Hollywood, in other mediums, even comic books, that, inclusion, diversity does matter. And we're starting to see more characters like that. But the thing is, with these like big studios, they can only work so fast, right? So even if they are moving in that direction, it's going to take them a minute to hit all these different characters. Like, Spider-Man and all of them been around since the 60s. And, they're like, we just got to a point where we're seeing all the cool stuff we're seeing on screen. Right. What took like 50 years or something like that. So
Wakanda.
For me, yeah, exactly. So it's like great that we're finally getting that, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But it's like knowing that, like, okay, can't stop there. We got to keep moving forward. And instead of just waiting and relying on, the top 5 companies, pretty much just me being like, okay, well, here are my offerings, and what's great is in the indie comic space, there are a lot of people, a lot of creators kind of moving in the same way, which is really great because you get so many different perspectives, in a way that you couldn't have gotten like at a Marvel or DC, because everything, it's very strict, there's order to it, where it's like, okay, we can only put out this during this time, so for us indie creators, same with film, like we can make and put out stuff whenever we want,
right?
And it's important to have that diversity too, because like within those walls, it's still, even as they expand, it's still very confined and very selective on who they choose to let in those doors. So this pretty much for me, making comics has kind of just become like a way to take off the chains, not be reliant on anybody, and not in a sense where I don't have to wait for anyone's permission to get my stories to the people that actually matter, right? Like you, the audience, these are the people that actually are going to get the story in the end. So it's like, that whole like in between of like, oh, let me pitch this to this one person.
Yeah.
And hopefully they'll like it to then pitch it to another person. Then hopefully they'll like it to then get greenlit, to then get made, to then get sent to the audience. Where it's like, well, let me just go straight to them.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's yeah. I mean, because you're the avenue that you're going, and with the comic books, and that can be a series, that could be a show, that could be
right.
So there's just so many possibilities. That could be live action. You know what I mean? So it's great what you're doing, and I'm just so excited and happy for you. And I just love hearing when a creator takes control of their own destiny and not wait by the phone or wait. It is a really tough industry to kind of, I mean, you could even know people, which is cool. I know a lot of people, but even at the same time, I mean, really, who's really, really helping people these days? Really slim. So it's just really great to know that we, at this day and age, we have that kind of ability to do that. So kudos to you. From like after this, like, is that something you're kind of leaning into a series going into, because I did see some animation, which looked awesome.
Thank you. Well, yeah, so that's a big thing. Like I said, kind of like tying into, which is really crazy how things kind of work out in the end. But going back into all the things that I loved as a kid, right? And so, like I said, 3D animation was something that I really loved. It was Toy Story being the first thing that inspired me to want to tell stories, which was 3D animated. Wondering like, okay, well, maybe let me take a second look at that and see if there is a way I can get involved. And with the technology now, it's a lot more feasible. Still kind of a big learning curve, but I feel like I'm in a mindset now where I'm more motivated and accepting of that challenge to kind of get my stories out. And honestly, like what I also feel like is the future is just like, how can we make stories more immersive? Like social media has proven that people don't want to just like buy something or consume something. They want to feel like they're involved, right? They want to follow the creator who made this. They want to follow the CEO of this company, and they want to feel like they can interact with them, right? So, that's why like building your brand isn't just about building your company up. It's also about building you up personally. It's like you're at a position where you have to show your face now. you can't just be hiding behind the scenes when you're trying to sell something. So I'm kind of like, I want to include that in some way with leaning into more of like the 3D animation and kind of creating a series that is whether it's a series or a film that acts on its own as this 3D animation that people can take in and read or watch and enjoy, but then also have that immersive side of, okay, well, what if someone can then like pick up a controller and actually like decide, well, you know what, actually I want to play through this story at the same time. I want to be in charge of the decisions that I'm making. And like there are a lot of narrative games that already do that. And I know Netflix has played around with kind of like the choose your path type series before. I forgot what it was called. But yeah, I feel like just that immersion of both worlds, I think would be great. Again, going back to my past, like video games was also a huge influence on me. And I feel like that's kind of the future, you know, merging film, TV, entertainment with video games, kind of like combining it so it's like all one and the same, and you kind of get to choose how you want to consume the product. Is a big thing. So that's where I'm still at the learning phase now of like, how can I create these stories in this 3D space that doubles as a standalone show or film and also a interactive narrative video game.
Wow, that's awesome. Ooh, I love that, the future, where we're going. Like it's so exciting. It's like, ooh, more of that, please.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's also like, not to say that, you know, because I think the big misconception is that like this future is just all VR and it's just, we're all going to have headsets on our faces and things like that. And I don't even think that's necessarily true. I feel like that will always be kind of like its own market. And as it gets cheaper and people become more accepting of it, I think that will be an option. But yeah, I think the way we consume stuff is still going to be pretty similar to how we're consuming it now. There's just going to be more ways to go about it.
Gotcha. Wow, that's exciting. Wow. So what's next for you after this? So this launched today, which is huge. So where can people buy this? And online, like where do they go to?
The best way to buy these comics is to if you go to our Instagram page at Stone Harbor Comics, and we have all the links on there. You can learn more about the characters through all our posts that we do. But yeah, again, Instagram at Stone Harbor Comics. That's the best way. And yeah, just to give like a quick backstory. First comic book, BioPunks. Let me see if I can get that thing.
There we go.
So yeah, the story BioPunks. It's about these three characters here. This is Caden, Naya, and Otto, and they all have different physical differences that result within their central nervous system that they try to have cured by having this thing here called the spinal cord surgically implanted on their backs. But what ends up happening is it gives them special abilities. Caden has super strength. Naya, she can cause temporary paralysis through her touch, and Otto can teleport. But what ends up happening because of these powers, they end up being hunted down kind of by this mysterious force, this villain, who actually is looking to extract their spinal cords, because this diamond thing here, that's kind of their power cell that can actually be taken off if you know how. And so he actually is hunting them down to get each of their power cells to make himself stronger. And so it's a story of them having to kind of like band together and kind of figure out like what's going on and what's kind of like even the cause of how, you know, they got all these powers and everything. So it's kind of like the fun, buddy sci-fi action series that I know I would have loved to watch as a kid. And thank you. And my second series, Legend of Althea. Okay, this one's a lot easier.
I know. It was like, what?
So this one, this is about a teenage girl. This one's a coming of age story about this girl here named Althea, and she actually gets her abilities to heal people through an artificial heart transplant. So if you haven't seen the common thing here, I'm playing with like tech, different like artificial biotech, kind of aimed at kind of like where science is actually going towards now. So it's like a lot of this stuff I'm not just like making up. I have like a genuine interest in kind of like where health and like science is going in the future, and a lot of this stuff they are working on are pretty close to like achieving. So
wow, really?
You know, yeah.
Wow.
It's actually pretty crazy. So, but make a good story good. You take what's happening and you figure out, well, what if it all went wrong? Yeah. So, but for Legend of Althea, she gets her healing powers through this artificial heart transplant that she has, and she pretty much has to figure out how to develop her powers to help those closest to her, while also trying to figure out how to survive high school. And so with her story, it's kind of like that blend of like my love and growing up with Spider-Man, and what kind of made him so relatable was that he was just this kid who had these issues and these problems, but now was given these powers. And it's like, okay, well, how do I be a superhero and also like finish school and then like hold down a job, So that's kind of like the big inspiration for that. And also kind of like putting in a superpower that I feel like doesn't really get that much attention. Like healing powers, those are always like the secondary characters, the characters in the back, right? They don't really get shine. So I kind of thought it'd be interesting to put a power that's not always seen as like a main power, and combine it with a character that's not always seen as a main character, a young Black woman who also has vitiligo. So so that's kind of like yeah. So that's like kind of a little quick description of both of those comics. If you guys want to learn more, go to Stone Harbor Comics, at Stone Harbor Comics on Instagram. And yeah, so these are full volumes too. This isn't just like a one-off issue. So each volume has 5 chapters, over 100 pages worth of good sci-fi goodness.
Because I have the ones that you gave me the last time we hung out and did video. Yeah, I still have those. I always tell people about it. I'm like, listen, you're gonna love it. Go to this site, and I always like talking about it. But I think what you're doing is just so great, because like we just need more of that, and that representation, like you said, it does matter, and it's really good, and it's done tastefully, and it's like great stuff. So I'm super excited for you, and again, congratulations on the launch today. That's super exciting. So I'm like, I'm sure you just like ready to like hear what people think, like the review.
Yes, no, absolutely, and thank you. And that reminds me too. I'll send you some new copies, because for BioPunks, the one that you have was actually my older version that I did with my original artist. Because we originally launched BioPunks in 2017, but now I've relaunched it, completely revamped the artwork and everything. Pretty similar story to the comics you have. I forget, how many issues did I give you?
3.
3? Okay. And that was also another thing too, why I moved over to doing just volumes. It's just, it's a lot of upkeep to keep up with all those issues and volumes. And yeah, because then it's like you got to print a lot, because some people might just want issue 1 because they're like, let me see if I like this first, and then if they do, then they're like, okay, well, now let me get all of them. I'm like, okay, well, now I got to print, and I got up to 5 issues. So I'm like, now I got to print 5 different copies of
so you're
all
doing
these different things. Yes, yeah.
Holy crap!
Yeah, everything except like the printing itself that outsourced to these companies. Yeah, that would be wild if I was doing all that. But yeah, definitely not doing that. But so that's a lot to keep track of, right? Because with these printings and everything, you got to make sure they all look right when you submit them. Make sure everything's good to go, and then once you get up to like 5 different copies of something, it's a lot to keep track of. And the biggest note I got when I used to do conventions was that people were like, when I started where I only had the first 2 issues first, and people would say, hey, this is great. I'll come back around when you got a couple more issues, or I'll come back around when you have a full volume. And at first I was like, what? I mean, just buy them now, and like I'll keep making them. But I learned that like there are a lot of people, one, they want to wait for the volume because one, they just want to read it all the way through. And being an indie creator, comic creator, it takes me a while to like do each issue. So people will read an issue, blow through it and be like, where's the next one? I'm like, oh, wait like 3 months. You'll find out.
It's coming.
It's coming, yeah.
We're building anticipation.
Exactly. And also for a lot of people, especially like a lot of vet comic readers, is it shows that like you're actually serious and you're committed. Because there are a lot of indie creators, I mean, no matter what the field is, they'll have good intentions, but for whatever reason, things get in the way and they're not able to continue. So it's kind of like, it shows like, okay, if you're serious about it, then okay, now I'll put money into it.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. It's funny. I actually interviewed, I don't know if you heard about this guy named Epic Voice Guy. He did Honest Trailers. He does the voiceover for Honest Trailers. He's a really good friend.
That's dope.
Yeah. So he was on the show and he was telling me how competitive even the voice over community is. He's like, he got a role to voice over an African American guy. He's like, but they didn't give it to this guy who's African American. Like, he was like, it's crazy. He's like, I was like, really? It's like that. He's like, dude, you think acting's competitive? It's really the same thing, but just a different world. Like, so I can imagine the comic world, and it's kind of it's similar, but it's just, I don't know. It's wild.
I feel like in the voiceover community, it's even tighter, right? Where it's like, I feel like once you get in, they know you're good. They're just gonna be like, all right, well, we'll just keep using you because we know what we're going to get, and it's like one voice actor can do like 5 or 6 different characters.
Have you done the Comic-Con thing with like go to Comic-Con? Because I know that's a huge thing.
So I did that when I first launched BioPunks in 2017. I actually started at the LA Comic-Con, which was still under Stan Lee's branding. Actually, it was like partnership with him. Okay. But that's how I actually started. I got a booth there, and actually had like really great reception in the beginning. And then I continue to do, I think, about maybe 3 conventions a year. But what was interesting was I stopped in 2019, like right before the pandemic, and I kind of noticed a shift. Like, I feel like people weren't going to conventions as much. I feel like they were kind of losing interest. And so like all that hype, especially like for indie comics, were kind of just like starting to die down. But what's crazy now is that they're back. It's almost kind of like a resurgence where people are excited to go again. Because like, oh, hey, we're outside. Let's do this. Let's do that.
Yeah.
And all these like cool movies are coming out. So I'm excited to kind of get back on the road, doing these conventions, now having these full volumes and having 2 stories now as opposed to just one, which I think is going to be really good. And to kind of come in, I feel like with a little bit more confidence because I have a better sense of what I'm doing. Yeah. And to be able to show all those people who are waiting for my volume that I have one now. I have 2 volumes. So I'm serious.
Well, more proud to you. Congratulations on BioPunks and all that you're doing with that, and just wherever else you take it, and all just your success and everything you're working on. I always like to ask this question with every guest, and there's no wrong or right answer. Would you rather have loyalty, or would you rather have respect, and why?
I would probably say loyalty. Okay. Because I feel like loyalty goes a long way. And I mean, I'm a type of person, I don't really care what people think, so I don't really care if people respect me or not. Right. But I know if you have someone's loyalty, that is very powerful, because that can translate into so many different things, so many different avenues. That means you have somebody you can trust, someone you can have by your side, where you can have someone who respects you, but not, if you're in a bind or something, but they'll be like, oh, you'll figure it out. Right. Where someone who's loyal, they might be more willing to be like, all right, how can I help you out? What do you need? Yeah. Let's do this together.
Yeah. I love that. Well, that's a great answer. Is there anything that you would like to share that you have coming down the pipeline with our listeners?
Well, I will say that I already booked my first convention back, which will be the LA Comic-Con again in December, the first week of December. All right. So I'm really excited about that, and I'm really pushing to actually have a working demo of the concept that I explained to you, where it's kind of like a little intro scene of both stories in 3D animation with some like basic controls that people, can use to like operate and choose different choices and kind of interact with the game and the story. So I'm working on that, hoping to have it done, or not done, but at least in a working, scenario, because I feel like it's still a very unique place. So that's kind of where I'm moving forward, along with working on the comics. Actually have a third comic book series coming out. Still working on the title, but it's actually based on a short film I shot called Outcast. Yeah. So be another fun action series where the main character, he has asthma. I had asthma growing up. So him trying to be like a vigilante while having asthma, which I always thought would be really cool to see, but then also be like, but that would really suck because you can't breathe. So it's like, how do you make that work?
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's exciting. That's cool. I love that. I love that you're taking from parts of like real life and then kind of merging into a world that you like to see and what that looks like. That's awesome. It's great chatting with you and talking with you. All the great things you have going on. Yeah, that's great. So you're always welcome to the Creator to Creator show.
You keep killing it too, because you're out here doing amazing work as well. So keep on your path.
Oh wait, actually, before we go, where can people find you on social media, follow you, and all the things you have going on?
At Stone Harbor Comics on Instagram. I got my TikTok up. Still trying to figure out how to use that. I'm also on Twitter at Comics Harbor because the other one was taken, which is annoying. But I'm also on Twitter. And then my personal stuff, I'm at Roro Beckley on everything. So my personal page is where you'll see my comic stuff as well, but you also see kind of like more of like the 3D animation stuff that I was talking about.
Awesome. Thank you again. And thank you all for listening. And always remember to live, love, laugh. All right, guys. See you later.